Hey, what's up, guys? This is Neal Reyes, and I want to welcome you to today's episode of Champions Minute. You know, I tell people all the time that marriage is not hard work, but you do have to work hard at it. Today, I want to discuss with you what I believe is the number one reason why marriages fail. Get ready. Today's topic that we're going to be discussing is called Love Tank. Again, today's topic that we're talking about is called Love Tank. You know, in our intro, one of the things I said is that I tell married couples all the time that marriage is not hard work, but you do have to work hard at it. You know, I can think of back when my wife and I first got married, and we would have people with good intentions and people who'd been married for a while try to come up and tell us that, hey, marriage is hard work. And I remember that every time someone would tell me that, it was like this flag would shoot off on my spirit as a warning telling me, don't listen to that or don't make that the confession for your life. Well, as I spent time before the Lord and seeking Him about that, because these were clearly people who'd already been married. I had barely gotten married. They were trying to pass along what they felt was wisdom to me. And so when I went before the Lord, He showed me to be careful with my words. And He also told me that just because something has happened in another's relationship does not mean that that will have to be the standard for my relationship. As He told me that, He then showed me that marriage is not hard work, but you do have to work hard at it. You see, sometimes people, when they get married, I sometimes joke around with friends that, you know, that they're no longer on the hunt, so to speak, specifically with guys. You know, they're on the hunt, they're looking for that pretty girl or that, you know, that woman that's going to be their wife, and they get her, and then what happens? They quit trying. And women, I just heard a loud resounding, amen, brother. You know, we're here to talk about real issues, and we're here to talk about things in love so that we can help people live a better and more productive life. But what does it mean when we say marriage is not hard work, but you do have to work hard at it? It means that you can't stop working. You know, the goal is not getting married and then coasting through life. In fact, I will tell you that I've seen relationship after relationship enter what I would call danger zones of their marriage by coasting on yesterday's love, so to speak. And I will tell you that it even happened within my marriage. Years and years ago, my wife and I almost went through a divorce. That's not something I like to say, but the fact is, it was a reality. We had hit a situation in our relationship where when we got married, we both started off with a love for the Lord and a love for each other. But fast forward a few years and we had gone through some events and different things in life. And as we did, we were no longer the same people as we were when we got married. Now, that didn't mean that we had changed in our love toward each other, but it did mean that life had happened. And when life happened, we went through different pressures or challenges in life and we changed as people. Where we ran into problems is that we quit changing together. In fact, I remember hearing Pastor John Hagee from Cornerstone Church in San Antonio once say, and I thought it was really funny. He said it as a joke, but there's truth to it. He said that men and women get married for different reasons. He said men get married to a woman hoping she'll never change, and a woman marries a man hoping she'll get him to change. But there is some truth in that, even though it's funny. You know, with my wife and I, we hit a rough point at about 3 years within our marriage. And at that time, at the 3-year mark, I remember looking back and realizing that, man, I didn't feel like my wife loved me anymore. And even though I loved and cared for her, we didn't know how to communicate. And that is what I believe is the number one reason that causes marriages to fail. And it's not just communication, but it is how to communicate love toward each other. You know, love, I just had this discussion with a close friend the other day. Love is much more than a feeling. Yes, there is an emotional set of emotions that go with love, but love is not based around a feeling. Love is based around a commitment. Because if love were simply emotions, there are times in marriage that you may not feel very loving toward your spouse, especially if they make you upset about something, but that doesn't mean you don't love them anymore. That's why we have to be careful as believers not to be led by emotions. We're to be led by our spirit. And love is a commitment in marriage. Now, in our situation, what happened was basically I was before the Lord and just saying, Lord, I love my wife, but I don't know how to make this thing work. I love you. She loves you. I thought that would be enough. But what is going on here? And as I allowed the Lord to speak to me, He showed me that what the problem in our relationship was that Katie was no longer the same woman I married. That did not mean she changed as an individual in a way that she didn't love me anymore. That did not mean we didn't have things in common anymore, even though that's what it felt like at the time. And believe me when I tell you, the enemy was screaming at me at the top of his lungs. He was trying to make me feel like she loved someone else, or like she didn't love me anymore, or that we didn't have anything in common anymore. But all those were lies from the pit of hell. What it was is Katie no longer was the same person I had married 3 years before. However, I was still being the husband for her that I got married to her on the day of our marriage. However, Katie needed more in life now. She needed a man who was going to grow with her and alongside of her, a man who was going to lead her spiritually and lead our family spiritually. And I hadn't discovered any of that. I was still trying to be the same person that I was when we got married, and I wasn't focusing on developing and being the husband she would need for the future. And so at that time, I discovered that there was a problem on how I was communicating my love with her. Now, if I could give anybody advice around marriage in this one subject, I would point you to a resource. It's a book by Dr. Gary Chapman, and it's called The 5 Love Languages. If I were to sow anything into a marriage, this would be the book that I would recommend that they read if they're struggling in how to communicate their love to each other. In this book, and I'm going to talk about a couple of the principles that the Lord has shown me after seeing this book. And in this book, Dr. Gary Chapman talks about that there are 5 basic love languages that every couple endures. These are the 5 love languages that he talks about: physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, and gifts. Now, the reason why I mention these is because everybody has what I believe is a love tank built inside of them. This is like a gas tank. However, if you know how a gas tank works, gas is very volatile, that it's a fuel that combusts easily to propel or to charge. But if you leave the cap off, it'll evaporate over time. Even with the cap on the gas tank, it'll evaporate quickly. And what happens is you might pick that gas tank up and smell it, and you may smell fumes of gas, but you can't power or run anything based on fumes. A love tank is what everyone has been given within their life. And in this love tank, or this reservoir within our lives, it is how we show love or sow love unto others. For example, my love language in my marriage at that time, because these can change, my primary love language was physical touch. And so for me, I felt that I was showing love toward my wife anytime I would come up and give her a hug, want to hold her hand, give her a kiss. But yet that wasn't her love language. Her primary love language at that time was something else. And so when I would try to go and give her a hug, I felt like I just hung the moon for her because I just expressed my love language toward her. However, what was happening is most people sow into others with their love language. When you're in a marriage, you have to learn how to sow into others based on their love language to meet their need, not your own. So what was happening is every time I was trying to show love toward my wife, and this is just one small area I'm talking about, when I would try to show love toward her, I was never filling her love tank because I wasn't sowing anything into it. So what happened was, over time, her love tank was going empty and dry because there was nothing being deposited into it. Now, what also happened at that point is, if people's love languages are different than yours, not only can you not make deposits, but you can also make very dangerous or painful withdrawals. I say dangerous because it can be dangerous for your relationship. I'll give you a great example. If your spouse's love language is words of affirmation, meaning words that build them up or lift them up, if you never sow that into them, words about them looking nice or that they do this good or, just building them up, if you never do that, but yet you come along and jump on them and chew them out and tell them how bad they are or how dumb or how negative they do things, you're now not only are you not making a deposit, you're making a withdrawal from something that is maybe not even there. And as people walk around long enough with empty love tanks, Eventually they'll go dry, and that's where couples start to see separation because they're no longer effectively communicating love within their marriage. I'm going to go over real quick what some examples of these are. Physical touch would be anything that's just that, physical touch. It doesn't necessarily need to be intimate touch, but physical touch. Sitting down on the couch together and holding hands. Your legs touching each other. A hug, a kiss. Simple things of physical touch. In fact, these types of people, they're huggers. Sometimes when they're around the office and they're expressing, thanks to people, they'll even be quick to give a hug. There's nothing wrong with that. Nowadays, people are like, oh, don't hug me. But it's not sexual harassment in the workplace, okay? It's just them sharing their love language with you. It's not them trying to, hit on you. They're just simply expressing thanks through a hug. The next one we have is words of affirmation. That's when you lift people up with your words and tell them words of thanks, tell them words of how good they are. You're edifying them. In other words, you're building them up with your words or exhorting them, lifting them up with your words and telling them how good they are and telling them you appreciate them or how nice they look. The next one is quality time. Quality time is just that. That's time where you spend quality time with each other. That doesn't mean the husband, up in the, down in the basement and the spouse in the kitchen. That's not what that means. Quality time is when you find things that your spouse, that's their love language, really enjoys, and you engage in that with them. And, if it's your spouse watching a football game, that doesn't mean you turning on the football game and you playing on your iPad while they're watching the game. Maybe that'll work for a while, but it's you sharing interest in the things that they have interest in and spending that quality time. Another one is acts of service. Acts of service is when you do things for your spouse. It could be something as simple as if it's for your spouse, for your wife, for example, maybe helping her with the kids with their homework. Maybe turning around and vacuuming the house or doing the dishes, doing something that maybe she would take on as a role and helping her with that. Yes, there'll be a general appreciation for that because you're helping her with her workload anyway. But in addition to that, you're helping her with the act of service. Some types of act of service can also be simply writing a little note and leaving it on the coffee pot for her, maybe on her pillow or on the mirror where she goes to get ready, just telling her how much you love and appreciate her and expressing that gratitude. And then the other one, or the fifth one, is gifts. And gifts are something that are just something that you give to them. And everybody's like, oh man, gifts sound expensive. They don't have to be. They could be, just like I mentioned, that little note. They could be you taking the time to write a little letter or a little note and sending it to them. It could be you turning around and stopping by the store once in a while and picking up a thank you card from the store or an I love you card and simply writing that and giving it to them. It could be paying attention to what they value and maybe learning what their favorite candy bar is and giving them their favorite candy bar once in a while. It's little gifts that you go to show them that you appreciate it. But it's not just any gift. It's a gift that says, I pay attention to you. I value what you like. And I'm blessing you back with the things you take interest in. Guys, I hope this teaching was encouraging you today. This is obviously a big subject that I can really drill down on. But, we want couples to be successful in life. If you're struggling in your marriage today, or even if your marriage is in a good place, you can always make your marriage better than it was. If you're struggling and you're not sure if your marriage is going to make it, don't give up. I encourage you to dig into the 5 love languages. Get a hold of Dr. Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages, or drill into this teaching and let the Lord show you and lead you. It's loving your spouse is not about them having to reciprocate love back towards you. It's about you learning how to fill their love tank and then making deposits on a daily basis into it. Guys, as always, we want to remind you to stop by our website at nealreyes.com or find us on social media at YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, where you can subscribe and share us with your friends. As always, we want to remind you that Jesus loves you and so do we. Thank you and have a blessed day.